Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2026 Washington Hospitality Association State of the Restaurant Industry webinar. My name is Andy McVicker. I'm on the communications team here at the association, and assisting me, as always, in the background are the rest of our communications team. Got Raquel Pace, Kyle Galvin, and Ken Folkley today. So thank you again for joining us. A couple of brief announcements as people will continue to trickle in this morning. So first off, thank you for joining us today. We're excited to present this information to you. A special thanks to our members who are here today, and thank you for being a member of the association. Your membership is what allows us to put on these kinds of webinars and help us support the industry and fulfill our mission. So thank you, as always, for being a member of the association. We also have lots of non-members on the call today. So thank you for joining us. We hope you like what you see. We hope you like what you hear. Hopefully, you get some helpful information to help you run your business on a regular basis. And we hope this is not the last contact we have with you. So, if you're all interested in joining the association, please visit our website, connect with one of our membership team members, and they would be happy to chat with you about all the amazing benefits that come along with joining the association. A couple of quick plugs for upcoming webinars a little bit later today. If you're not already signed up, Anthony will be giving a similar presentation of the state of the lodging industry. So highly encourage you to attend that as well. That'll be later today at 1:30. Link in the chat if you want to register. It's not too late to register for that. So that'll be happening a little bit later today at 1:30. We also have upcoming webinar with one of our newest allied members with Rock Law. This is going to be a legal informative presentation around high risk leave policies and making sure that you are navigating those potential landmines carefully and correctly with some legal information here from one of our newest allied members. This is a members only webinar because it's of a legal nature. So again, if you're not a member, highly encourage you to contact a member of our membership team to get you signed up and get you full access to this webinar. And finally, you're going to hear quite a bit from Anthony today about the various issues and challenges facing all businesses, but especially hospitality businesses. And they may be difficult to navigate those challenges alone, whether you're a single owner or a small leadership team. We have your back. We have an advisory network, a group of over a dozen experts in particular fields, many of which you'll hear about today, that are especially trained and have expertise in these areas. And as a benefit of your membership, you're entitled to 30 minutes of free consultation with all of our advisors every year. So highly encourage you to check out our advisory network if you're struggling with a challenge with your business and looking for some expertise. Some final housekeeping items before I hand it over to Anthony. We are recording today, so today's presentation will be posted to our website later today. You'll also get an email with all the links to the slide deck, the recording, all that stuff. So hang on to this or watch out for the email and hang on to that later for future reference. We do have the Q&A feature enacted today. We imagine a lot of folks will have a lot of questions for Anthony. So please feel free to use the Q&A feature if you have questions along the way, and we have time at the end built in to answer your questions. And finally, we want to hear your feedback as we go. Anthony wants to hear directly from you. So you'll see this little image pop up every now and then throughout the presentation. Please feel free to offer your input as we ask you a couple of poll questions along the way. So when you see that sign, we're going to launch a poll and we'd love to get your feedback. With that, I'm going to turn it over to our main event today, Mr. Anthony Anton, President and CEO of the Washington Hospitality Association. Anthony, take it away.
Andy, thank you so much, and I want to thank the team for months of getting ready for this. This presentation today is, well, what used to be in a book, but in an electronic world, of course, is now on file. Of a lot of research, a lot of the data. Kyle and Ken and other folks on our team keep an extensive database of just everything we should know about the industry, and our great partners at the National Restaurant Association and in other areas provide us a lot of data as well. Andy, I have one question on engagement. Um, if something resonates with them along the way, are they able to kind of give me a thumbs up, or if they think I'm off, give me a finger or something else? Um, and how can
Well,
they make sure that things are working?
yeah, I'm not sure about the finger part of it, but we got reactions enabled in the webinar today. So yes, please feel free, if you want to react to something Anthony says, feel free to use the reaction button as well, along with the Q&A. You're welcome to put in your input there as well.
Okay. And if you do, that would be helpful. I think to the point, and I kind of want to set this up. Today is the first of probably over 200 times I'll give this presentation over the course of the year. Today is really industry focused. I don't know how many people will actually come in, but we actually had about 450 people RSVP for today's seminar. We'll see how many actually are able to come and the dishwasher didn't break and their manager showed up and they were able um, to be on today. But today, I'd really love to hear your feedback. So as we go along and things are really resonating with you, you're like, I like that stat. That's good. That represents me. If you're concerned that it doesn't, click that. And then our team and I will go back later because we're going to be talking to media folks. We're going to be talking to electeds. And we want to represent your voice. So this is the best the data and other things can give us. But this is your industry, and we're humble servants to try to represent you and make sure we get the word out about how we're doing. With that, not only does a lot of the data sources come from government data and reports and research from universities, but also I just completed the our CEO roundtables. So in cities across the state, from Tri-Cities to Burlington, and from Vancouver to Spokane, and Central Washington, and of course, multiple areas in King County and in the Puget Sound. Met with over 280 operators in 34 small groups. And a lot of the feedback today is really driven from what they said and what they helped us understand of what's going on in the industry. So those are our strategic sessions. If you get a chance to come next year, we'd love to have you. But some of our stuff is going to be coming from those roundtables directly, of which I think is going to be our first stat, which is really the current state of the hospitality industry. We asked people on the road trip and gave them four options for the state of the industry. Over 70% said either the industry is broken or we're only going to tread water even when the economy recovers. So that really is a red flag for where we currently sit today. I'm sure that doesn't surprise many on the call that the struggles are at this. Maybe even more shocking because we're a huge industry of 1,600 restaurants. There's always someone doing good and there's always someone doing bad. But when you look at the next number, uh, only 2% of those who attended the roundtable said the industry is doing well. And when you look at the law of mass numbers, I honestly thought that number would be higher, not because I think the industry is in great shape, but just the law of large numbers would have implied that it should have been better. Because I think out of 1,600 people, you're always going to find someone who's doing well. But only for 2% of the operators to say this, I think is really an indicator of how much we're struggling right now. Next slide. What we really have in front of us when you see those kind of numbers is kind of the theme for today is we've got a recipe for disaster on our hands. We have many operators have told me this is even tougher than COVID and what they're going through. There's no government relief here to bail us out or help us get through times. And the struggles are real. And we have a recipe for a disaster in our hands. I think a lot of people want to call and blame this on one thing, but I think the really reason we like the recipe for disaster theme is it's all these things added together that are creating this anxiety, this pain, this struggle for the industry. Next slide. And let's just start with our margins. When you look at the average margins compared to the rest of the country, we're 60% lower, a 1.5% margin. Largely driven by our labor costs are higher here than the rest of the country. But it really puts us as an outlier on just being profitably being functional. This report did come out last year, and I was talking to people last year in communities, and there was a really nice Methodist priest. Not that it matters that she was Methodist, but she came up after me and she's like, "I'm sorry, what's a?" She was one I think a Kiwanis meeting, and she said, "What's a margin?" And I think to some degree, as we talk in the industry, We talk business because it's what we know, but they don't fully understand what this means to us and why we've gone ghost white in talking about it. And the reality is, when 1.5% margin, next slide, on a 1.5%, on a $1.1 million in sales, which is the exact average for Washington restaurants, that means the operator is taking home 16,500 a year. So when you put it in those terms and talk to the community, people are like, wow, you've put everything on the line and everything you've got to move forward for this kind of margin. And granted, this is the average. So a bunch of you are like, what margin? Others are going to be higher than that. But I think it really puts in context our struggle and what we're trying to deal with where we're at right now. So a lot of times when people say, well, just raise prices. I think you saw the national report that came out last year. We have. Washington's got the highest menu prices in the country. And I'll be honest, a lot of us were surprised. We knew we'd be high. I don't know if we knew we'd be higher than California or New York, but we are. Um, and a lot of that's driven by our higher costs. And it's not just Washington that's high. But if you look at Seattle, of all the major metropolitan cities, Seattle's the second most expensive city in the country. So it's not like in order to deal with our small margins in here, we haven't looked at raising prices. We have, and yet our margins are still small. I think what the even bigger struggle here is, next slide, is our expenses aren't stopping. We have the highest prices in the country. We have the smallest margins in the country. And whether it's a labor cost, our insurance cost, our cost of goods, just about everything we purchase is rising at a level above inflation. And that is just putting people in a real vice grip and squeeze. Um, I'm kind of curious for here, what you think. What are your biggest expenses? We're not showing your particular answers, but Andy, you want to walk them through our poll and our first poll of the day?
I do, yes. So I just launched our poll. Should be up on your screen now, but we're just asking a straightforward question. We'd love to hear from you. What has been your single biggest expense increase in the last 18 months? This information that we collect from the industry is really helpful as we present this information to others and help share the story of the struggles of the hospitality industry. So I see question or answers are coming in. So thank you. We'll keep this poll live for a little bit, but then I'll hand it back over to you, Anthony, to take it from here.
And I do want to say something because I their answers won't be public, right?
Correct.
Okay.
For our information purposes only.
Okay, perfect. I don't want anyone to put something in and then feel like they ended up on the front page of the Othello Gazette. If there's an Othello Gazette, I'm not sure. All right. Andy, let me know when I should keep rolling.
Yeah, questions are coming, or excuse me, answers are coming in. So folks, I'll keep this open for a couple minutes. Folks can continue typing in, but you are welcome to keep on plugging away.
Okay. I think that initial struggle is being compounded. So low margins, we're already high prices, and our expenses continue to go up. We are seeing fewer guests. 6 in 10 operators reported fewer guests in 2025. I don't think that surprises many people. I think one of the things that is alarming, or at least can give comfort, next slide, is that 72% of guests, according to a major survey, now feel that restaurants are too expensive. And so when we look at pricing and how we handle prices, we now have a number of our guests that used to feel like dining out was affordable, and the numbers pointed out they wanted to dine out more. And we saw a lot of that when our dining scene was booming. We're now seeing a lot of consumers, majority of consumers, say restaurants are too expensive. Even more so, they're now making the choice to buy down from expensive and eat elsewhere. So buy down on menu, buy down on um, other areas, move forward from there. And so we're seeing a lot of people trading down in their choices and their purchases. Next slide. Then, of course, we have economic headwinds. We know what's going on. While our struggles may not be on the front page of papers, and for those who still get a newspaper, and for the front page of um, the headline on King 5 or other TV shows. What is what we're seeing. And we know that we're seeing with today's economic headlines fewer travelers. Canadian tourism, which is a major part of the Northwest economy, is down 26%. And international visitors, which we are a major international hub, with it being a gateway to Asia and a lot of and other areas, our international visits are down 16.5%. And so these are challenges we are facing. Next slide. Also, there's global things going on. So we're talking about this recipe for disaster, low margins, high prices, customer resistance to higher prices, economic headwinds. We're also seeing generational changes. And these are really important because it's changing some of the things we can rely on. Gen Z and millennials are actually very, very comfortable in using third-party delivery for just about anything at a higher degree. We're seeing people change what nightlife looks like, and we've heard a lot of people of what happened to everybody after 10 o'clock. Where did everyone go? We're seeing different food patterns. I think one of the biggest generational changes we're dealing with in this recipe for disaster, if you go to the next slide, is alcohol sales. Um, and we are seeing a major change in the way that generations consume alcohol. Right now in the United States, the generations are getting pretty similar in size. Boomers, millennials, and Gen Z are all about equal size. Us Gen Xers, sorry, we're the smallest of the four generations currently in the consumer marketplace. And about 60 some percent of Gen Z is now over 21. And yet they only represent about 4% of alcohol sales. That number, if it was tracking with other generations, should be much higher at this point. And why that matters is for a lot of us, when times got tough, liquor sales and alcohol sales were something we could depend on to get us through tougher times, or they were just a general key part of our P&L. But we are seeing a dramatic shift in younger generations' drinking patterns and otherwise, and our models depended on older shifts. And so if Gen Z is going to drink 30% less than millennials, and millennials are drinking 20% less than Gen Xers, we got a big change going on. I think one of the hardest things for me, and even in tough times, for if you've seen my previous state of the industries, is I've been high on generations because for every year they were jumping on their choices to dine out and use restaurants more and more and more, and their view of restaurants as an essential part of their lifestyle as growing. Um, but now we're seeing a shift. And so after millennials jumped way over Gen X and Gen X jumped way over boomers and boomers jumped way over silent, and this growing dependency on restaurants as an essential part of their life, Gen Z is the first generation we've seen in four generations actually drop. A lot of that has to do with pricing. A lot of that has to do with affordability. And that is a major change in the way this is headed for new generations. Next shift. And if we're just really being honest, we currently have a dysfunctional relationship with government. And at the end of the day, we need each other. We need our streets to be clean. We need communities to be safe. We're not unaware of the need for different protections and laws, but right now, this relationship is just broken. And rather than working with folks and talking with folks and being at the same table, we hear conversations of corporations and business as if they're four-letter words. And if we're being honest, our own emotions aren't always in check. And so our reaction is, screw me, well, I'm back at you. And then that doesn't lead to greater conversations. We've got to have a different relationship with government because if we look at what's coming, things are just going to get more and more challenging. And collectively, these things are a major challenge and a major push to who we are and are impacting our ability to do business. So, next slide. You put these things together, and does anyone disagree? I'd love to see your reactions. Does it feel like we have a recipe for disaster currently on our hands? And where are we at? Andy?
Yes, sorry. too many buttons here. Here we go. I'm launching another poll. To Anthony's point there, we again love to hear your feedback. So we got two questions in the current poll. First question: does any of this ring true to you and to your experience? And the second question: did we miss anything? You got the ingredients here up on the screen. Did we miss anything in our recipe for a disaster list of ingredients here? Again, we'd love to hear your feedback, and please take an opportunity now to share that. Again, I'll keep this open for a few more minutes while Anthony continues on with the rest of the presentation.
Okay. Well, if you've had employees who've complained about issues and other problems, let me start here. Let me reset my conversation. Doing nothing is not a great answer. The reality is, if we do nothing, what's facing us right now um, is closures. And in order to generate enough customers to get our margins back to a healthy space where people actually have a survivable small business, which the vast majority of restaurants are small business, where over 80% of our operators have less than 20 employees. I talk to other industries and they're like, well, that's not small business, that's micro business. But in a restaurant business, you're like, hey, 25 employee restaurant's a pretty big restaurant. We're small business. We're dominantly small business, and right now, we need to if nothing else changes, we're facing a lot of these small businesses closing, and then those guests will be redistributed to other areas. That's if we do nothing. That does not feel like a recipe for success. The number of restaurants make up the vibrant of our communities. Each one of those generates jobs and generates other things. Um, so sitting around and doing nothing is not feeling like the option. To avoid this, I think all of you on the call are scrambling of how do I either cut my costs by around 35 to 40,000 per million or increase my sales around 75,000 plus per million. Now, this is statewide. I know if you're in Seattle, you're going to say like, well, that isn't nearly enough to get me to great shape. I understand that. But in general, if we're going to get back to a 4% margin or better, these are the decisions that operators are making now, today, urgently. And how do we do that? What's this new recipe look like? So this is what I was going to start with earlier. Complaining all day long and saying how much the weather sucks and kids these days doesn't actually get you to a better place. Yes, we need to address the realities. Yes, we need to be honest. We got a recipe for disaster in our hands, but we got to swap recipes and insert a new recipe card. And what's going to be our recipe for success? How do we change? Because I don't want to complain for the next 10 years. I want to start working on actions and things that start moving us forward. And so, what could be in that recipe for success? I don't think there's any doubt. Part of that is how you're going to have to rethink the labor model. When I was growing up in my parents' restaurant, and if you in the 80s and 90s graduated in hospitality from WSU, you were taught that the average labor model was around 33%. In today's thing, we're bouncing around or above 40. And so those are the challenges we're facing when we're trying to keep costs down and keep margins up. So how are we going to change our labor model? I know many of us are experimenting with service charges, reduced operating days, ending late night service. QR codes are making a big comeback. A lot of people are trying hybrid service or other areas since our major cost driver is our team. And these are hard to say, but we also need to stay in business to employ great people. And so part of this is how do we rethink our labor model? Specifically in um, in full service, I think what's really interesting is what's the future of servers? Two really interesting reports have come out in the last few months. One of the larger accounting firms in the area released a study of what the average server reported to the IRS in 2025 in tips, net after tip out. And when you combine that with the state's minimum wage in 2025, they're making $44.72 an hour. If you're in Seattle, you're $5 higher than that. You're close to $50 an hour. We love our team. That's a good thing. And we're not sitting around complaining that that's the problem. The problem is the cost that goes with that and the cost that the guests and others are not willing to pay these costs at this range. And so what changes? And we're starting to see some change. Along with all the other service models and the other things, we've actually seen the number of servers that we used to employ with fewer restaurants at the time drop 20%. And so what's going to happen with servers? How do stations get redesigned? Do we have servers? Is there a new position that emerges that's bartender slash tableside attendant slash QR code corrector? None of this is what we know, but we know that the future of servers and tipping, in order to survive and find a new model, is on the table, and we're rethinking this and sharing new ideas. Next slide. I also think we need to meet the changing customer. Um, we can complain that this isn't my daddy's restaurant guest or other things, and that's probably true. And the reality is they are our guests. And so how are we going to change to meet new customers? Next slide. We're seeing a lot of things out there. Uh, while we're seeing Gen Z buy fewer alcohol drinks, they're much more willing to spend on higher end, more creative, higher value drinks. At 73% are willing to spend on a creative drink choice at a higher price point. We're seeing their preference for how they socialize with each other be different. And rather than a nightcap, a day cap, or hanging out in outside areas and spending time with each other, talking, and maybe a communal table has a comeback. I'm not saying these are the answers for each of you at all, because there's 16,000 different restaurants in Washington. My point is we have new guests. And if they're going to be welcome and excited to spend money in our properties, we have to make them feel like they're welcome and that we're meeting them where their needs are. Next slide. This includes a lot of the areas that we do for convenience and speed. Uh, I'm going to ask my team to drop the link to the latest National Restaurant Association State of the Industry, of how they can get it. Thank you. Uh, and check that out because they have really interesting information about the different perceptions between generations on digital ordering, QR codes, third-party delivery that can help you make decisions. I think to some degree, some of these trends we tried 8 years ago thinking they're coming, but the generational shift hadn't happened to where it has now. And I think maybe that was true of QR codes, where we tried them, didn't work. But now we're seeing as people come along and post-COVID and comfort levels, maybe they're coming back. So I think really take a look at that National Restaurant Association State of the Industry. I think they did a great job with collecting a lot of national data that can help you think through how we meet these changing customers and what newer customers might be open to. Next slide. I think this was interesting, maybe one of my most interesting things on the whole road trip as I traveled around the state and I met with many of you. I love you all, but if we're really honest, I this year met the very first operator who got into restaurants because of computers, not not because of serving or food or making guests happy. And so we're an industry that has never really embraced AR technology. I joke that we were the last industry to get fax machines and the first one to get rid of, and the last ones to get rid of them. Yet 74 operators are already active. 74% of operators that I talk to are already actively engaging AI tools. And their case studies for how they're using was inspiring and cool. I talked to so many of you across the state who had ideas. I'm like, that's brilliant. That's so cool. And so I'm hoping all of you really think through how do we use AI and what might this work out? I think Andy's going to do a survey, but what I would tell you is if you feel like you're working your tail off and getting nowhere, AI should save everyone on this call 5 hours a week. And each one of your people who supervise people in paperwork and headaches should save them 5 hours a week. So I think let's switch to an AI question. Andy, can you take it from here?
Just launched the poll, Anthony. Thank you. Just launched that. Feel free to type in your response now. We are very curious. What AI tools have you adopted in the last 18 months? Area that we're continuing to explore as well. We'd love to get your feedback. Also, just a reminder, the Q&A is still open as well too. So if you're thinking of questions along the way for Anthony at the end of the presentation, we'll be taking those questions and answering those as well.
Andy, how's my pace? Am I getting all hyperactive monster
No,
drinking Greek guy, or am I
no,
speaking where people can understand me clearly?
no, you're doing good. You're right
Okay,
on pace.
thank you.
Yep, yep.
All right, next slide. Um, we heard from a lot of people on the road trip, specifically, uh, how can we move this forward? And one of the big things is we don't know the basics, and it was a fascinating conversation. I want to say it was in SeaTac, but it might have been in Bellevue. Um, uh, an operator like, well, I don't let my people use AI on property. And one of their GMs from their another location was there, like, dude, we're all using AI. I was like, but I said we couldn't. I'm like, well, it's like telling your teenager to turn their cell phone off at night. Your team is using AI. So I think what the industry is asking for is, can you give us some training, some basics? So if my team is going to use AI, whether I want them to or not, at least they know the dangers, the basics, where to use them, where to share them, and the legal liability. So I have some comfort. And what are the tricks and trays and tips and ideas and prompt shares we can do? So our team is taking that feedback, and stay tuned. And Andy and Ken and Shannon and others are amazing. So they're going to come up with some cool stuff in front of us. Next slide. I thought the really interesting thing from our road trip was the number one non-traditional change that I heard from operators of what are they doing to survive is they're overhauling their marketing. And I wanted to share that because I don't think I've ever heard at a time where more people said, "What are you doing differently?" I'm doing my marketing differently. I'm not sure I got a clear answer on the winner, but I did get a collection of mass opinion that this is an area where we can do better, more effective, and connect with our community in a stronger way. And so I do think part of the recipe for success is figuring out how you can overhaul your marketing to be more effective in today's world. Next slide. Andy, am I stuck? Oh, there we go. I think the other thing that was really interesting, and we're entrepreneurs, was the number of people who are trying something different. We heard these consistently across the area. We're also seeing this pop up in national polls, is that if my basic traditional area can't get there, what can? And I'm not saying any of these are the particular answer. Some of these will work for your ideas and some of them are not. Um, but your revenue might not be just stuck with what you charge on the menu when they come in at 5:30. What can you do to drive revenue that might be different? And how can we think about that? And I think there was one operator who was trying to do basically an event a week and really get creative on coming together. There was another operator trying to basically take their kitchen as a pop-up to different parts of the community, and then say, and the rest of the time come to my place. And again, I love the entrepreneur side. When you ask why I'm so passionate about serving you, your ideas are brilliant, and they're like, how cool is that? And then I get all giddy and excited. I think this is a chance to really think through what can we do differently and move that forward. I know it's out of the norm. Um, this one is going to be one of the areas where probably we need to work together as your association and the industry. Um, but it's also, I think, an area where it's most important. We can complain about elected officials all day long. We can talk about why don't people understand us. Why doesn't my spouse understand me? Well, at the end of the day, complaining to your coworker or your buddy over a beer does not fix the problem of our communications. We have got to start talking to the community about who we are, why we're struggling, and why we love them. Um, the cool thing is, 6 in 10 customers actually think of our industry as an essential part of their lives. The cool thing is, when they look at all businesses across the sector, we routinely are the number one favorite industry of the community. Um, and next slide. When you look at what operators want, we need strong communities too. 84% of operators want to create strong local hospitality communities that connect with their communities and support each other. And 80% of operators are willing to engage in this idea and this concept. And so we have a community where we're one of those popular industries in there. We have operators who we can't survive if people don't want to come in, they don't have good jobs, if crime sucks. This should be a marriage, not a battle. And I think part of the problem is we don't talk to each other. How do we talk to the community and build a bridge? I think this is one of the biggest strategic challenges we have to tackle as an industry. And your association can't do it all for you. This is your community. What we can do is provide tools and maybe the car, but you got to drive it. And so, what does this look like? Big part of our recipe moving forward. Next slide. Part of that community has got to lead to this. We need a different relationship with government. Um, and right now, I think a lot of people view them as antagonists, or we're the antagonists, or we're mad at each other. And we live in a politically world where people are rather be mad at each other than talk, learn, grow, and find solutions together. We're hospitality, we can change that. We've got to change that. And so, hey, government and hospitality, table for two, please. We got to sit down and start talking. And we want solutions for community just as bad as the electeds do. How do we find the right ones together? And that has got to change. We can't make a hamburger and sell it in Tokyo in Kirkland. We're here. We can't move our headquarters to another state. We can't move our manufacturing to South Carolina. We can't move our software to other areas. We're here. We have got to make this work. And we're the one industry where we got to be able to find solutions together. People immediately start saying, well, what government needs to do is change this law or change that law or enact this law or do this or that. All that's true, but none of it matters if you don't have a relationship of trust and solution and otherwise. So, first thing first, how do we help you and how does the industry and operators work better together to build a different kind of relationship with government? Next slide. So this is the start of a recipe for success. But I would also say this is the start of a recipe for success. I'm not saying as challenging as these things are in front of us, there's probably something else. And I'd love to hear from you. What are we missing? So if we think how we can get Washington back to that great, vibrant hospitality scene that's the envy of a lot of areas, what else do we need to put on our recipe for success card? Andy, you want to take the survey from here?
Yes, sir. Just launched. So again, similar set of questions from a few minutes ago. Really curious. Does this ring true to you? And also, what are we missing? This is, as Anthony said, this is not an exhaustive list. We're sure that there's plenty more that we could add to this. So we'd really love your feedback to learn more about what you think should be included in our recipe card for success. And questions are coming in, Anthony, or sorry, excuse me, responses are coming in at the moment. Yeah, go ahead and take it away.
Okay. What's on the next slide, Andy?
Good transition.
So, sorry, the survey is on in the middle of my screen and my mouse doesn't want to get to the screen. Pick it up so I can see. There we go. I would say for a lot of these challenges, that is what the advisory network is for. We put together some of the smartest brains that we know in the industry. And as part of your membership, you get to talk to them. And so as you're trying to think through AI and operations, or you're trying to think through labor costing, or you're trying to think through marketing, or hell, maybe it's time to say, screw it, I don't want to invent all over again. We have a bunch of experts who can help you think through this and walk through this. We're here for you. So feel free to use your territory manager. Hopefully, you all know their first name, and you have a good relationship with them as an extension of your team. We're trying to be here to help you. We want to help you get through this, and we want a great industry in Washington. So use us. Next slide. All right, Andy, I think we're at the question portion of this, and so I want to be here to serve. I know we want to be appreciative of everyone's time, so I'm going to kind of let you sort through what's out there, and we can
Absolutely,
go from
yes.
there.
Yep, yeah, for sure. Yeah, so we got a handful of questions that have come in so far, so I'll be going on those. Again, feel free. We got plenty of time for questions. So if you have questions for Anthony, yeah, feel free to type those in the Q&A box below, and we'll try to get to as many as we can. First one, I will send your way, Anthony. I got a question about food waste. So how do restaurants deal with food waste? Food waste is one of the biggest losses we have in the kitchen.
Yeah, go ahead and go to the next slide, Andy. So as we're talking, people can remind themselves also of what's
Yep.
on the two cards. Um, I was back in the show in Chicago. For those of you who don't know, the National Restaurant Association puts on just a gorgeous show. I don't really need to go every year, but if you at least once in your lifetime can go see three massive buildings of all the latest technology and latest ideas and go hunting and searching, there's some pretty cool technology around food waste that can help us do it. I think with all technology in our industry, it's probably not completely fleshed out yet. Um, Actually, my very first job in the industry was in my dad's restaurant managing food waste. He put me on a stool next to the garbage can, next to the dishwasher, and told me to write down all the food that was being thrown away. I thought I was really helping my dad out. It turns out I was just an extension of babysitting in my family's business. Um, but I don't think that concept was on. And he said, you actually helped me because if people are throwing away stuff I'm putting on the plate that they don't want, then that can help me reduce my food cost. So I do think there's some technology out there. I do think we need to share with each other what's working and share with each other what's coming out there. But I don't think you're wrong is if we're capped out on pricing and we're capped out on our ability of how many hours can we actually close, then we got to look at what we're putting on the plate and seeing this value. So I think the question is a good one. Next, Andy.
Yeah. So next question, in rethinking your labor slide, you talked about running leaner labor using like QR codes, for example. Um, this works well for some concepts, I'm sure, but how does a high touch service model find room to shave labor when the minimum wage keeps eating into margin?
Uh, well, whoever asked that question, I wish I had a golden answer. I'd like to say something that sounded beautiful and solved all your problems, but I don't know if I'd be honest in that moment. That's the challenge we have in front of us. I can tell you some of the things that we're hearing, and there's probably something that's going to work for yours area that won't work for others. One of the areas that I didn't talk about, because we're talking about technology, is how do we apply our theory that we have in the back of the house to the front of the house? And what I mean by that, this is a conversation that occurred, I don't remember which city in now. We all have that cook that when they first start for us, they struggle and there's time and you're on the grill helping them all the time. And then 2 years later, that cook can do the work of two initial cooks. And the value of an efficiency and a sharp cook is fantastic. And they have value because they can do the work of multiple by the time they learn and they get expertise. There was a large conversation of what can we do with our servers on that end and the station size that we think has to be unified for all. Does it? Can our veteran servers have more tables? Can our other servers have less tables? What can I do to really focus on raising the level of my current team and cross-training and growing them and reduce my turnover and save money in turnover? And I think turnover is one of those things we all know is out there, becomes so frustrating because of all the challenges we have in employment. But when we can make a meaningful difference in turnover, we can make a meaningful difference in efficiency and save dollars. So I know those are tried and true things, and it's probably something you've heard before, but they are tried and true things. And I think to some degree, if you can dust off your plan and look at it, maybe that will be helpful. But your question's a hard one, and I wish I had a golden answer.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Anthony. And just kind of going back to the first question about food waste as well as this last one. Again, not to beat a dead horse here, but that is exactly why our advisory network exists. We have a couple of advisors within that network who have decades of experience that help struggling restaurants with these kinds of issues, or even thriving restaurants to help to improve. So please reach out to the network. Please reach out to your territory manager, who will connect you with the advisor network, and they can help you with your specific situation.
I'm grinning because
Uh,
I know one of them's going to call me right this is over and said, "Why didn't I say this in the moment?" I'm like, "Well, that's why you're the expert."
exactly. Okay, next question. How can Washington Hospitality help with promoting candidates that support our industry and introduce new supportive legislation?
Well, I think for those of the who don't know, we're really taking an entirely new look at how we approach our government affairs program. And so our board spent a better part of 18 months looking at where we're at and where things are going, and bluntly, what we could afford to do as issues spread. And so we have hired a new government affairs director, lost our longtime all-star in Julia Gordon as she formed her own firm. But we brought on someone who really understands communities in Andrea Ray. And in what she's organizing, our teams are going to be really focused on building communities. And so we will have five lobbyists assigned to areas to help you better connect to your operators. And so all this is not going to happen tomorrow, but I would say get to know who's the lobbyist that's the lead for your area. And their job is to put you together with their legislators and have dinner and have lunch or bring them by for a tour. Way too often, if we look in the mirror and we're self-critical, and I think we all have to do that, including us, we lived on the moment of vote yes on this bill and vote no on the bill. And we don't take the time in the summer to say, how are you and what are your priorities and how do we build a relationship? And then how do we help that relationship get stronger and how do we support those who support us? And so hopefully this new model will move us forward. So reach out to your territory manager and let them know you want to talk to your local GA lead and you want to get involved and help. And that could make a big difference.
Excellent. All right, so staying on the government theme here, what can be done in Seattle specifically with operators struggling to not be able to provide the minimum wage that keeps going up in Seattle and other regulations that threaten closures of restaurants in Seattle?
Um, Seattle, if you haven't met Skylar yet, she's our newer government affairs lead in Seattle. She's sharp as all heck. I wish I was as smart as she was. Um, she is developing a new strategy. We're about to roll out a new team member, and we're going to engage this thing by neighborhood. And so we are looking at no longer trying to attack this thing by the issue, but tackling about it by community support. For all our struggles in Seattle, people love the dynamic restaurant scene that Seattle has had over the years. And they miss the bar scene. I mean, I was trying to explain to new two exchange students the nightlife that and the number of bands that got produced out of Seattle and where has that gone. But you think of all the nightlife and the scenes and the great restaurants and the great foodies. Seattle has been very proud of that and still wants to be. So how do we skip the process and really build really strong strengths in communities with local chambers, local DMOs, and do a neighborhood by neighborhood build up approach? So this will be a new rollout that Skylar is bringing on. She'll have a new team member that she's going to out shortly that has experience in community building, and they're going to try some really unique things in that area. In the meantime, hey Anthony, I'm trying to meet a bill today and a P&L today, and I got to make payroll today. I think you need to look at a lot of these recipe cards and figure out where we're at, and it is challenging.
Yeah, well, let's stick with the community theme a little bit and dive a little bit more specifically here with a great question. Any suggestions for storytelling in the broader community, knowing labor costs are a critical factor, but knowing how sensitive the subject is between business owners and employees?
Well, one, I would love to put on the recipe card that our employees are our best advocates. And so, what I would really love to see is um, how can our employees be our best messengers? And when you look at successes that have been had in Washington, D.C. and in other areas, you see uh, servers and employees say, wait a minute, my business loves me and my business is trying to employ me. And I now have more tables and other challenges. And so what happens with that? Um, and so I think engaging employees is a puzzle I wanted to put on the recipe card, but we haven't figured out how to solve that one yet. but I'd love to talk about that. I think having honest conversations with your employees is important. In fact, I think it's very important. Um, and we need to move forward, and we have to make the changes.
All right. Next question about POS systems. What can we do about technology costs? POS monthly plus credit card cost percentage is rising. It's cutting into already lean profit margins.
Um, well, let me talk about that. The National Restaurant Association has made this a top priority, uh, and um, and we are missing progress on that national bill. So as we have conversations with our Congress people, which is weird because normally we're so focused on what's going here in Washington and what they talk about in DC is way down the road. But there is federal legislation to talk about how to deal with these processes in front of us now, and that does have a chance to have momentum. There are national leaders on both sides that have said it's the time to come take a look at it, and that's positive. Um, the team is currently developing its proactive agenda for this upcoming session, and there are bills out of Ohio and not Ohio, out of oh my gosh, my brain just shut off. I want to say Illinois and Colorado. And now, as I say that, I know I got one of those two wrong. That have passed that I think really could be model legislation. And given how much uh, where the political dynamic is in Washington, I don't know why we couldn't consider a similar bill here to protect small operators around credit card fees and processing and otherwise. And so I think there's ideas out there. Both these bills in other states passed recently. And I think there's a chance to look at those things along with what the NRA is doing, National Restaurant Association is doing with the federal.
Excellent. Thank you for that. We had a comment come in. Somebody, it's not a question, but someone wanted to share a link to information about for those going through construction or major renovations about energy rebate programs. So we'll be sharing that information in the email afterwards that go out today. But we have a question along those lines that I'd like to share with you, Anthony. What are the biggest sources of funding available for kitchens to upgrade their equipment to reduce labor and expand menu offerings beside high interest loans. As a consultant in the menu and equipment development, what sources of funding are out there to pay for a consultant that can help operators with these services?
One, I want a big shout out for all our struggles, and I think of all the national use, something that's gotten drowned out is the National Restaurant Association was able to get back to a reasonable depreciation schedule on equipment, which should be able to, if you haven't really looked into that, it passed. Andy, was that about a year ago? Time and space are starting to shrink on me. But I think about a year ago that bill passed, and I'm still talking to operators who weren't aware of that really great accomplishment by our national partner, with some help from our local Congress folks to get back to a good depreciation schedule, which should allow us to look at equipment schedules in the areas that it actually depreciates versus some kind of arbitrary timeline where it's long since worn out and we're no longer able to depreciate it. So um, that being said, uh, a lot of utilities do have the ability to have rebate programs or purchase programs, and find out who in your utility can be your partner in that. And if you don't know, contact your TM and find out, hey, who is the my local utility person who helps me discover what their programs are available to me. They're mandated by law to set money aside to help with this and to help do these things. And so, how can we connect you with that? As far as Andy, the second half of that question, I got myself lost. Was
Let me scroll back up. Um, as a what sources of funding may be out there to pay for a consultant that can help operators with these services?
I'll have to ponder that one. It might be a great
Yeah,
question for the advisory network.
yeah, thinking the same thing. Yep. Cool. All right, let's shift back to got a good question right here about marketing. I love the focus on rethinking marketing. What are you hearing in Olympia about the challenge to a new 10% sales tax being implemented on all advertising and web services?
There was a a ton of taxes and service taxes based and that ultimately increase our costs at a time where we couldn't afford it. And this was probably one of them. And there's a big part of that conversation going on. So we do hear about this, and we are aware of the sales tax on services that didn't used to exist is being directly passed on to you and your cost dealing with it. And we do hear about it. I think to some degree, there were so many new taxes passed 2 years ago that the white noise of just tax increases, I think it's part of just the whole conversation. Is kind of what I hear consistently from operators. And when they're dealing with the tax increases struggle, the cost of goods struggle, the cost of labor struggle, the cost of insurance struggle. In insurance, given what's starting to happen with drive-by lawsuits, as drive-by lawsuits move from California up to Washington, our insurance rates are starting to reflect that. And so I think I would really make sure you've got your eye on your insurance costs because I think they're going to be challenged and stressed over the next few years to come. Which is why you, as a industry, said, "Hey, can you do something to help us get a control of that?" So if you haven't a chance to look at our insurance program, we're trying to build something that the industry controls and the industry understands. And so take a look at our insurance program. I think we're trying to address an issue that's only going to get worse in the years to come.
Well, you beat me to my next question, Anthony, because there's a question in here about insurance, and just wondering if there's any regulations or anything focused on insurance premiums that you see forthcoming. You mentioned our program, for example, but anything on the legal side or the regulatory side that might be in the works?
I want to check with my team on specifically that, but from what I gathered of the nature of this last legislative session, I haven't heard of anything that I think would make a meaningful change. But I've also given some of the direct industry issues of tax I might have missed a bill. So that's my one I might follow up later with Andrea, and see if there is something along the lines that might answer that question.
That's good. Thank you. How about speaking of costs? How about not non-food items like disposables? Do you have any kind of insight in there in terms of food? Excuse me, non-food cost reduction?
Non-food cost production. I was with you till you said that last phrase, Andy. Do you mean on like on clamshells and straws
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
things? Yeah,
Yep.
I think that has a lot to do with the reliability of the supplier network and how things are shipping and those costs are driven. But as their costs go up, our costs go up too. And I think that's a lot of things that we saw when gas prices rise, which is a major cost for a lot of our suppliers and other things. Those costs get passed on down. And when the distribution networks of our major supplies get disrupted and put premium on costs or tightness on those struggles, those get choked. And so while I feel like other things are out there, um, that's going to continue to be a challenge until the national environment calms down to some degree.
Well, thank you, Anthony. That is all the time we have today for questions. So I will just hand it back over to you if you have
Well,
60 seconds of a closing remark you want to end on.
this is to the industry. Today's intention of that, we'll be rolling this out more directly for consumers and for media moving forward. We'd love to hear your corrections. Even better, I would love to hear from you how you can help us get this word out. If you have a local chamber exec to be willing to give this presentation on how it impacts theirs, we'll share. I think these images are what we're trying to talk to. Yes, we need to address that we got a recipe for disaster, but we want to work with everyone to try to create a recipe for success. And so, how do we do that? And so, how can we get these images out as you talk to your legislators? How can we provide you with an easy conversation points? Maybe it's as simple as this right here, or otherwise, to start having a conversation with the public of where we're at, and maybe start to throw away our red card and create a new green one. So, thank you, everybody.
Great. Yeah. Thank you everyone for joining us today. And again, if you haven't signed up yet, join us today at 1:30 for the State of the Lodging Industry webinar later today.
And
Thank
Andy,
you
will
all.
this be on replay? Will people who want to show this to their managers or their counterparts or others be able to pass this on?
100%. Yep. As soon as we get it downloaded from Zoom and uploaded to our website, we'll have it available. We'll send that out into email for everybody who registered today. So yes, this is publicly available. Please share far and wide.
Everyone, it's an honor to serve you. Our team loves to do so. We have a passion to serve. Thank you for being with us today and being part of what we're trying to do to help you.